28 years in psychiatric medicine, and I believe in handwriting. Not the forensic kind, the graphology people, the courtroom charlatans who claim they can read personality from pen strokes. I mean the personal kind. The way you learn to recognize your own hand the way you'd recognize your own face. I could pick my clinical notes out of a stack of 50. The way I loop my lowercase d. The abbreviation habits, PT for patient, DX for diagnosis, RSO for rule out. 3 decades of writing the same words in the same way, and your hand develops a signature that goes deeper than your actual signature. That's what makes what I found impossible. Not improbable. Impossible. I should explain how I ended up in Building D. This was 2019. Greystone Forensic Services, Central New Jersey. The state had just closed 3 psychiatric facilities upstate as part of the forensic bed consolidation. Harwood, Millbrook, Carver Ridge. All the active caseloads got absorbed by Greystone. We went from 82 beds to 140 overnight, and they didn't hire a single additional attending. My office was a repurposed records room on the 2nd floor of Building D, the Competency Restoration Unit. Filing cabinets from the closed facilities lined 3 walls, patient charts going back to the 1970s that nobody had cataloged yet. The room smelled like old paper and floor wax. One window painted shut, a desk they'd wheeled in from somewhere, a fluorescent fixture that hummed at a frequency I could feel in my fillings. I was 61 years old, and I was finishing my career in a storage closet. The Competency Restoration Unit is where you send people the court has found incompetent to stand trial. My job was evaluations, fitness to stand trial assessments, competency restoration progress reports. You sit across from someone who may or may not understand what a judge is, and you determine whether the state can legally try them for a crime. The instruments are standardized. The Beck, the MACCAT-CA, the structured interview. But the last paragraph of every evaluation, the clinical impression that I always wrote by hand, separate from the typed report, my own ink on the page. That was my practice for 28 years. The clinical impression is yours. The scales tell you numbers. That last paragraph is the only part that requires a human being. I was 3 months from retirement when Dr. Voss came into my office to review the transition files. She was taking over my caseload. Competent, efficient, thorough. She'd been at Greystone for 4 years. We were going through the active cases one by one. State v. Garza, State v. Pullman, State v. Denning. She was flipping through a folder and said it casually. Didn't even look up. "Are you keeping the Mercer notes, or should I file those?" I told her I didn't know what she was talking about. "Mercer," she said. "D. Mercer. I thought that was one of yours." I told her I had no patient named Mercer. Not active, not discharged, not deceased. Nobody. She stopped flipping, looked at me, then looked at the folder in her hand, then back at me. "Huh," she said. "Maybe I'm thinking of someone else." She moved on to the next case. I didn't move on. That evening, after Voss left, I pulled my most recent completed evaluation. State v. Garza Competency Restoration Progress Report dated 11 days prior. I flipped to the last page, my typed summary. Below it, my handwritten clinical impression, 4 lines standard. Below that, my signature. Below my signature, there was another paragraph, in my handwriting. D. Mercer, 61M voluntary presentation. Effect appropriate, speech WNL, thought process linear and goal-directed, no formal thought disorder, insight partial, judgment fair, initial impression consistent with adjustment-related concerns, recommend continued monitoring. I read it 3 times. I had not written it. I knew I had not written it, but it was my handwriting, the looped D, the abbreviations, the way I always write WNL with the W slightly taller than the other letters. I pulled 3 more reports from the cabinet, State v. Pullman, State v. Denning, State v. Ochoa. Each one had a Mercer paragraph after my signature. different content. Same handwriting, same pen pressure, same blue ink I always use. I counted 15 evaluations over the past 18 months. Every single one had a paragraph about D. Mercer. I sat there for a long time after that. The fluorescent light buzzed. The filing cabinets ticked as the building settled. Somewhere on the unit, a door buzzed open and then locked again. 15 paragraphs about a patient I had never met, written in a hand I could not deny was mine. I took the 15 reports home that night, spread them across the dining room table in chronological order, earliest on the left, most recent on the right. Ellen was already asleep. I told myself I was doing clinical review, standard quality assurance. Nothing unusual about an attending reviewing his own evaluations before retirement. I don't know when I stopped believing that. The first Mercer addendum appeared on a report dated March 2018, State v. Kessler. A straightforward competency evaluation. The defendant had been found standing in a Walmart holding a fire extinguisher, insisting the building was about to collapse. The evaluation itself was unremarkable. My clinical impression was 2 sentences. But below my signature, the Mercer paragraph read, D. Mercer, 61M. Initial intake assessment. Chief complaint, I keep losing time. No prior psychiatric history documented. Patient is well-groomed, cooperative, oriented to person, place, and date. Denies auditory or visual hallucinations. Denies suicidal or homicidal ideation. RO adjustment disorder versus early cognitive process NOS. A perfectly normal intake note. Textbook. I could have written it about 100 patients over my career. The next addendum, attached to a report from May 2018, read, D. Mercer, follow-up. Thought blocking noted during interview. Patient pauses mid-sentence for 3 to 5 seconds, appears to lose train of thought, resumes as if no gap occurred. Patient denies awareness of interruptions, sleep disruption, vivid occupational dreams. Patient reports dreaming of still being at work and waking confused about whether it is a work day. I remember reading that, and I remember setting down that page very carefully because I had been having those dreams for months. Dreams where I was still at Greystone, still conducting evaluations, still sitting across from patients in the interview room, and then I'd wake up in bed at 3 in the morning and not know for 5 or 6 seconds whether I was retired or not. Ellen had mentioned it. I'd told her it was normal. Transition anxiety, common among physicians approaching retirement. I'd said the words like I was presenting at a conference. I kept reading. Months 4 through 7. The Mercer observations describe speech becoming circumstantial. Patient provides excessive, unnecessary detail before reaching the point of a given response. Tangential diversions are self-corrected but increasingly frequent. Then sleep architecture disruption. Then patient reports vivid occupational dreams with increasing frequency. Continues to believe he is still working despite accumulating evidence of functional decline. Functional decline. I wrote that, or someone using my hand wrote that, about a patient who didn't exist, who was describing my symptoms back to me in my own clinical vocabulary. I know how this sounds. I spent 28 years sitting across from people who believed the universe was speaking directly to them through patterns. Self-referential thinking is axis-eyed territory. I know the diagnostic criteria for delusional disorder better than I know my own phone number. And I am telling you, this was not that. The addendums from months 8 through 12 were worse. Flat effect noted. Patient demonstrates markedly reduced emotional range. Responses are appropriate but shallow. Laughter is brief and mechanical. Anosognosia. Patient demonstrates complete lack of awareness regarding cognitive changes. When confronted with evidence of functional decline, patient rationalizes or dismisses. Insight absent. GAF scores were declining across the addendums. 72 in the early notes, 58 by month 9, 41 by month 12. A GAF of 41 means serious impairment in social and occupational functioning. The kind of number I'd write on a court report to recommend someone was not capable of managing their own affairs. I tried finding D. Mercer in the system. I logged into the facility database from my home laptop, searched admissions going back 10 years. No Mercer, no D. Mercer, no David Mercer, no Daniel Mercer, no Diane Mercer. I searched billing records, bed assignments, pharmacy dispensing logs. Nothing. The next morning I went to Greystone early. Caught Paulette, head nurse on the restoration unit, been there longer than me, before her shift meeting. Paulette, do you remember a patient named Mercer? D. Mercer. Would have been on my caseload. She thought about it, shook her head. Then she stopped. Mercer, she said slowly. Wait, isn't that your mother's name? Her maiden name? My mother's maiden name was Mercer. My name before it was Aldrin was David Mercer. D. Mercer. I went to my office, closed the door. The filing cabinets hummed in the silence. I picked up the 15th report, the most recent one dated 6 days ago. The Mercer addendum on this one was longer than all the others combined. The 15th addendum was a single block of text, no line breaks, single-spaced, written in my hand, steady, clinical, without hesitation. Every letter formed the way I form letters. Every abbreviation the way I abbreviate. I read it standing at my desk because I don't think I could have sat down. D. Mercer, 61M, 18th month reassessment. Patient continues to demonstrate complete anosognosia regarding cognitive and functional decline. Perseverative belief in maintenance of professional role despite convergent evidence to the contrary. Confabulation present. Patient constructs elaborate, internally consistent narratives around retirement preparations and transition of caseload that do not correspond to observable behavioral patterns. Thought process, circumstantial with increasing tangential features. Thought content, fixed belief system centered on professional identity. Affect, constricted. Mood described as fine, incongruent with behavioral presentation. GAF 31. Axis I, major neurocognitive disorder, progressive, etiology undetermined. Axis II, deferred. Recommendation, involuntary commitment evaluation pursuant to NJSA 3427.2. Patient meets criteria, danger to self through neglect, inability to provide for basic needs secondary to cognitive decline, lacks capacity to make informed decisions regarding treatment, screening certificate to be filed. GAF 31. I have written that number on court documents. It means you cannot function. It means you cannot reliably feed yourself. Dress yourself. Understand where you are. It means someone needs to make decisions for you because you are no longer making them. The screening certificate, that's the legal document you file with the court to initiate an involuntary commitment in New Jersey. I filed hundreds of them. I know the statute number by heart. I could fill one out in my sleep. And it was signed. Below the addendum, my signature, my license number, E7734. 28 years of writing that number on every evaluation, every court order, every prescription. I put the report down. I looked around my office. The boxes I'd been packing, books, diplomas, the desk clock Ellen gave me for my 20th anniversary at Greystone, the filing cabinets from the dead facilities, the painted shut window. I tried to remember driving to work that morning. The route, I-78 to exit 33, then Route 22, then the facility access road. I've driven it 6,000 times, but that morning, I couldn't find it. Not the memory of the drive, the knowledge that there had been a drive. It was like reaching for a shelf and finding the wall smooth. I tried to remember yesterday. Fragments, the buzzer, fluorescent light, a conversation I couldn't place, the smell of floor wax. I reached for my phone. The screen showed 15 missed calls from Ellen, 3 voicemails. The most recent was 11 minutes ago. I did not listen to them. I don't know why. I think I already knew what they would say. I looked down at my badge, clipped to my coat pocket where it always is. White card, blue text, Greystone Forensic Services logo in the corner. I had worn it every day for years, and I had not, I realized, actually read it in a very long time. I unclipped it, held it at arm's length because my reading glasses were on the desk and I didn't want to look away from it. The format was wrong. Staff badges have your name, then your title, then your department, then a 6-digit employee number starting with E. This badge had a name, mine, and below it, a 7-digit number starting with P, the prefix for patient identification, P41-27034. I put the badge on the desk. I sat down in my chair. The fluorescent light buzzed at its frequency. Somewhere down the hall, the unit buzzer sounded, but it wasn't the shift change tone. 2 short, 1 long. Meal call. Patient meal call. I've heard it 5,000 times from the other side of the locked door. I sat there and I listened to it and I didn't move. After a while, I don't know how long, I picked up my pen. I opened the next report on my desk. State v. Hartley, competency evaluation. I turned to the last page, past the typed summary, past my clinical impression, past my signature, and I started writing. D. Mercer, session note. Patient demonstrates continued. The pen moved easily. The letters formed themselves, the loop D, the abbreviations, DX, RO. I'm recording this in my study. I don't know what time it is. The recorder has been running. I can see the red light. Ellen is downstairs. I can hear the television. I checked my desk drawer before I sat down tonight. There's a folder in there I don't remember bringing home. Inside are 16 reports. Each one has a Mercer addendum. The 16th one is new. I don't remember writing it. It recommends immediate evaluation. The red light on the recorder just went off. I don't know how long ago it stopped. I don't know how long I've been talking.